Good evening, everyone. It's 5 o'clock, and without wasting time, welcome you all to today's CC Friday. Today's episode will be focused on key principles of creating high quality assessments. Before we begin, let me introduce you to our esteemed facilitator, Mr. Himanshu. So, he is RM Academics at Educational Initiatives. Today, we'll explore the principles for creating assessments. So, without further ado, please join me in welcoming Mr. Himanshu Sangatani. Over to you, Himanshu, sir.
Thank you so much, ma'am. A very good evening to all of you, and Jai Hind also. I really like the culture where we're keeping attached to our roots and we say Jai Hind along with good evening. So, Jai Hind, everyone, to all of you as well. Like ma'am mentioned, I'll just give a quick intro about who I am. Uh, just like all of you, even I am a teacher. I started my career as an English teacher in Bombay, and after a couple of years of teaching, I started teacher training. I've done curriculum assessment. I've been a writer. I've established a pre-primary curriculum book by the name of Happing. So basically, I can understand what is going on in all of your minds right now. I'm sure everyone is thinking that 5 बज गए हैं, अब ये सेशन की क्या ज़रूरत है, हमें जल्दी जल्दी काम खत्म करना है. But trust me, I will try and wind this up as soon as possible. Also, taking forward ma'am's introduction to what we're going to do today, a lot of things have been changing in the education era. I am sure we all might have attended trainings on the new education policy and how the NCF guidelines have changed, and how even the assessment pattern is changing. So today's main aim and agenda is to understand that is there a need in changing the way we assess our students, be it our PTs, be it our annual assessment, be it our half yearly assessment, or be it the simple class tests that we take up in the school. If yes, there is a change required, what should that change be? And what can be the first step for us to take that change? This is more of me learning from you or me understanding from all of you that what is currently going on in the school rather than trying to teach you something or take you through something. So, considering which, I will request if all of you can please, maximum of you can please keep your cameras on. Also, let's keep this as interactive as possible. I have a lot of questions that I want to learn from all of you. So please be more prompt in answering any question that I have, which will just help me in taking this session forward fast. As I understand, we have a couple of people who are still joining in. Before initiating this session, I would just like a small icebreaker if we can do. For the icebreaker, I am sharing a link on our Google chat. I'll request if anyone can share it on the groups also, that if we have any. Uh, this link basically has two simple questions. We will just try to, as soon as we can, answer these two questions. I will repeat this in Hindi as well. मैं चैट पे एक लिंक शेयर करूंगा जिसमें हम फास्टेस्ट फिंगर फर्स्ट खेलेंगे. उसमें दो क्वेश्चंस है. हम कोशिश करेंगे कि हम जितना जल्दी उन क्वेश्चंस का आंसर दे पाए उन क्वेश्चंस का आंसर देंगे. दिस इज जस्ट एन आइस ब्रेकर. इसका आपके परफॉर्मेंस पे, आपके असेसमेंट पे कोई फर्क नहीं पड़ेगा. दिस इज जस्ट trying to set the context of what we are going to do in today's session. So I have shared the link on chat today and I have pinned it as well. I will request if everybody can quickly go through this link and start trying and answering these questions. क्या link सबको मिल गया? सबको दिख रहा है? Yes, no? Right.
Yes.
Perfect. We will quickly go through the questions and we will try to give an answer to them. Fastest finger first.
Done.
Thank you. As I can see responses coming in, I have around 9 to 10 responses that I've already received. Okay, we'll just give another 60 seconds for all those who can answer. If not, then we will deactivate this link. Done. I will request every one of you to please stop answering right now. आपने नहीं किया है तो कोई बात नहीं है. It is not compulsory. आप please answer करना बंद कर दीजिए. Henceforth now you will not be able to access the link. Okay. कैसे थे questions? Easy, simple. Class 3 mathematics के थे questions. If anyone who found it okay easy, Abhinav sir को easy लगे. Anyone else? Easy, difficult, good? Great. I will very quickly now just share my screen. Can everyone see my screen right now?
Yes.
Yes.
So we had asked two very simple questions. One was that were asked to draw a line. Students of class 3 were asked to draw a line. This is what the students have done. Who has drawn a line correctly? Also, the second question was how many centimeters of string is hanging below the balloon? We have a scale and we very simply have to measure this. As most of you responded that the questions were easy, could be easily solved. However, what I would like to take your interest to as we can see that for the first question, 89% of us could answer it correctly, which means that there are still 11% of us who answered this incorrect. Also, for the second question, only 58% of us could answer this correctly. The remaining have got the answer as incorrect. Interesting? Interesting to see everyone? So, क्या इसका मतलब ये है कि हमें क्लास 3 की मैथमेटिक्स नहीं आती? नहीं, इसका मतलब ये बिल्कुल नहीं है. आई एम श्योर यू कैन डू बेटर मैथ्स देन at least me and most of us over here, for all of us. But problem kahan hai? Why couldn't we solve this simple question which was asked, which a class 3 student should have been asked? It was at that level. The answer is because this is a kind of question that we were not expecting. Usually kya hota hai? Even for students, they are usually expecting the same question which is there in the textbook. अगर टेक्स्ट बुक में 2 + 2 = 4, 2 + 2 = डैश का क्वेश्चन है, दे आर एक्सपेक्टिंग कि टीचर्स भी यही क्वेश्चन एग्जाम पेपर में लिख के देंगे 4 + 4 = what? They may not memorize the question that is there in a textbook, but they memorize the pattern. For science, social studies, English, they are used to giving answers to questions like define photosynthesis, explain what is the meaning of this. Considering which, when a question is just asked in a little different manner, if we as teachers also can get confused and end up giving the wrong answer, this is very ideal for the student too also. अब इस सब से हमें क्या समझ में आता है? कंसिडरिंग फ्रॉम अ स्टूडेंट्स पर्सपेक्टिव इस सब से हमें क्या समझ में आता है? इफ एनीवन वुड लाइक टू पुट योर व्यूज फॉरवर्ड, व्हाट डू यू थिंक? इसका क्या रीजन हो सकता है, या ऐसे आंसर्स हमें क्यों आ रहे हैं?
So may I?
यस यस प्लीज मैम.
Actually, when you see the scale, generally, what is the pattern? It's if the unit is in centimeter, so you start with the 0, then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, like that. But the scale question mein tha, it's started by 10. So there may be a confusion. It's a 10 centimeter or 10 millimeter. So for class 3 standard, एक scale की picture होती है. Picture was not very much clear, I think, for the third standard kid. So maybe. So what I feel instruction should be very much clear.
Okay. Okay. So in the question, it said that it said that there is the scale is drawn. It has the centimeters, but I understand why we got it incorrect. Why do you think question of framing of question incomplete information to the learner?
We have some hands raised. I think Kapuli ma'am raised her hand. Ma'am, you want to share something?
Yeah, I just wanted to add in Anju ma'am's word. Even children feel that balloon is also, I mean, they will not read the sentence properly. They'll just take it, the whole thing together. So that could be one of the reason. They include the balloon also with the string.
Right.
More
Right.
hands raised. If I may invite Aarti.
Yes, please.
So the first factor I feel is comprehension of the question. When we are reading the question, how are we comprehending it? And then the second comes is how are we applying over there the concept?
Right, right. I can see a lot of people replying on the chat as well. But in the interest of the time, we're just trying to set the context. So we'll just quickly move forward to what I was trying to come to. And if anyone has a particular question in per se, we can answer it individually once after the session ends. So I'll just very quickly come back to the question. So like most of us said, probably the balloon is something we didn't understand, was it to be taken or no. The comprehension. So the question very clearly says how many centimeters of string is hanging below the balloon. So as a result, the students have to measure this. However, like correctly said by some of you, that the students are used to seeing the scale from 0 centimeters and not 10. They are used to measuring from 0 and not starting from 20. Considering which, this was comparatively a little difficult for students to solve. And this experiment that we did with us as teachers, we actually conducted it on students as well. And it was also published by CBSE. I, after the session, will share the findings of them as well. So even students, 55% of the students couldn't answer this correctly when we tested this on students. So then we did a research that why could the students not answer? And there are three major variations of why students are not able to answer the questions that were asked. This type of question that was asked. First is A, like I believe Aarti ma'am correctly pointed out, comprehension. They're not used to such kind of questions. They lack practice of such kind of questions. And we in our day-to-day curriculum now need to include more such questions. So then when a question is asked to them of this format, they don't struggle with answering that kind of question. The second major reason was they were in a haste of solving it. When they see something which they think is easy, they want to answer it as quickly as they can. And that is why they don't read the question. So we as teachers need to inculcate a habit of reading the question in the students. And after reading, trying to comprehend what the question is in the students. And third, and the main reason which we found out was that they did not understand what the question actually meant, or they as taught in the textbook could measure from 0 to 45, but if asked to measure from 10 to 45, they weren't able to do it because our textbooks taught them only to measure from 0 to from x to y. If we ask them to start calculating from the middle, the students who wrote memorized or wrote learned this concept, they couldn't solve this type of a question. The people who actually understood the concept of measurement, they could answer. So what we are trying to now address through our today's session and many upcoming sessions that we are going to be conducting together is A, how do we find the misconceptions that the students have and how do we diagnose them? B, to diagnose and find these misconceptions, what could be the correct question that is to be asked to the students? Everyone clear? Does anyone have any questions or any doubts? If not, we will move to our main presentation. Which is understanding key principles for creating quality assessments. Now, before we move on to this topic, I would want any one of you help me answer कि इसकी क्या जरूरत है. हम अभी भी क्वेश्चंस अच्छे से फ्रेम कर रहे हैं, बच्चे आंसर कर रहे हैं, हमारे 90% टॉपर्स है, 10-15 बच्चे ऐसे क्लास में है जो नहीं परफॉर्म कर रहे हैं, बट वो तो हमेशा ही रहेंगे. Why is a need to change the questions, or rather is there a need to change the way we ask our questions? ये पहले मैं आप लोगों से समझना चाहूंगा.
Yes, there are some hands raised.
Whoever wants to speak, you can please unmute yourself and speak, because I am presenting. I will not be able to see if a hand is raised.
Excuse me, sir. Like we need to change the pattern, especially for those 10 to 15% students who are left. So we need to have the assessment as per them also. Like why are they lagging behind?
Okay, I see someone writing meet the 21st century skills. Ma'am very correctly said we need to find out and assess that why these students couldn't answer these questions. Okay, but then
Sir,
why change the assessment pattern together as a whole?
So may I answer?
Yes, please.
Yeah. So basically, I feel that if we want to test, if we want to go beyond the knowledge testing, then these kind of questions are very important. Like where we are testing how much of concept they have understood, then we need these kind of questions.
Okay, fair.
Sir, may I?
Yes, please.
Sir, there was a message from our principal, sir, today, which focused on the NEP's plan for preparing students for the coming world, preparing them as global citizen. And the question paper should have more such questions that will focus on application-based learning. So not only the MCQs and short answer, long answer, and case-based. So more such application-based questions will be included under all the categories. The pattern of question paper for class 9th and 10th was said to be the same, having all the 5 types. Whereas for 10th and 12th, it was written that more short answer and long answer type should be included. So more application based, where the children are able to apply their learning in their daily life. Therefore, the question paper pattern has to change.
Right. Very well said, ma'am. Thank you so much for that answer. So just to quickly sum up the responses that we got, that A, yes, we first need to have a change in question papers, because हमें सिर्फ उन बच्चों के लिए पेपर नहीं बनाना है जो आंसर दे पा रहे, हमें उनके बारे में भी सोचना है जो आंसर नहीं दे पा रहे. B, we not only want to check the students' conceptual understanding, but we also want to check if whether they are being able to apply that knowledge to real life. हम जब पढ़ रहे थे तब हमारे जमाने में क्या होता था, बच्चे को अगर थोड़ा बहुत मैथ्स आता था तो मॉम डैड बोल देते थे कि इसको इंजीनियर बना देंगे. थोड़ा बहुत बच्चा साइंस में अच्छा होता था तो बोल देते थे कि डॉक्टर बना देंगे. इंग्लिश में अच्छा होता था तो टीचर या राइटर बना देंगे. बट nowadays that scenario no longer exists. आज अगर बच्चे को एक्सीड करना है, उसे ना कि इन सब चीजों की अच्छी नॉलेज होनी चाहिए, बट उन्हें ये पता होना चाहिए कि इनको कैसे अप्लाई करना है, बिकॉज द सिनेरियो, द टाइम्स आर चेंजिंग more quicker than we could imagine. Considering this, we need to get on to this change. And lastly, as Sonali ma'am correctly pointed out, अगर हमें लगता है कि हमें नहीं भी चेंज होना है या क्यों चेंज हुए, now the CBSE, the new education policy has mandated, they have made it compulsory that we need to have an assessment reform. We need to change the way that our questions are asked. We need to have more focus on higher order thinking skills and foundation skills. This is a newspaper cutout from very recently, which correctly says that in the coming academic session, which is for this academic session 24-25, more than 50% of the questions will be competency based. Competency based matlab, which focus on the skills and not only on the rote learning which was taught, similar to the two example questions that we solved in our test. This change has already started from 220, and the class 9th and 10th teachers, rather the teachers from classes 9 to 12 who are present in the call, would totally agree to me that the way these questions were asked in the board exams earlier, and now when they are asked, we see a major shift in the way these questions are asked. I'll take you through a sample also. In 2019 CBSE class 10th question paper, this was the question that was given. आप अगर अपने लेफ्ट हैंड साइड पे देखेंगे, ये क्वेश्चन एज इट इज फ्रॉम द एनसीईआरटी क्लास 10th टेक्स्ट बुक 2006 के एडिशन से लिया गया था. This is a cutout from the NCERT textbook, and the question that you see was there in the class 10th board paper. So what our students are used to answering, and in what ways our teachers are used to teaching, कि जो टेक्स्ट बुक में दिया गया है, जो टेक्स्ट बुक के पीछे दिया हुआ है, वही आएगा, आपको उसी को करना है. However, if we now see a change that has come up in the way the board paper has started asking questions, they are more competency based, they are more knowledge based, they are more skill based, they are more application based. So for example, I'll just go through this one question. While designing the school yearbook, a teacher asked the student that the length and width of a particular photo is increased by X units, each to double the area of the photo. The original photo is 18 centimeters and 12 centimeters. Based on the information, write an algebraic equation depicting the above information. What should be the new dimensions of the enlarged photo? What we are now trying to do is the concept of algebra, which most of us, I was a very poor mathematics learner. I could never understand the usage of algebra, symmetry till very recently. But now what we are trying to do is algebra ka actual real life usage kya hota hai, that is something which we are trying to depict through the question paper itself. These are questions which were asked in the current 2023 board papers. So as you can see, there is a major shift that is happening, and not only the way I want to change, or not only the way probably DPS wants to change, but probably how India as a whole is changing. Again, in 2013, a question that was asked for tangents was, prove that the tangent of any point is perpendicular to the radius through a point of contact. A very simple, closed-ended question. But now again in 2023, we've given them a real life application and asked them to discuss the concept of tangent. So the point I'm trying to come at is that CBSE has directed this change. They have started changing the question papers, and we as a school, we as a teacher, we as an individual who is in education will only be successful if we also adapt to the change in the patterning of questions. This is why we are here today, to discuss the importance of these changing questions and what are the basic changes that we need to do in the question papers that we're already making to make a better question than what we're already doing. I'll just take a pause here. Any doubts, any questions? Okay. Understanding, no doubts and no problems.
हेलो सर.
Yes, sir.
हेलो सर. दिस साइड सूरज. मैं ये कहना चाहता हूँ कि कुछ आपने जो पॉइंट्स बताए वो बहुत सही पॉइंट्स थे. समहाउ बच्चों के साथ कभी-कभी क्या होता है कि जैसे आपने कहा कि मैं बहुत पुअर मैथ्स लर्नर था, लेकिन बाद में मैंने रियलाइज किया कुछ बच्चों के साथ क्या है कि वो परफॉर्मेंस एंजाइटी होती है. वो मार्क्स बस अच्छे नहीं ले आ पाते, लेकिन होते अच्छे ही हैं, देन मे बी हम इस पैटर्न पे काम कर रहे हैं और शायद इंडिया इस पैटर्न पे काम कर रहा है। कैसे उसके जो एग्जाम्स में कैसे मार्क्स उसके आ जाते हैं, लेकिन वो सीखता कैसे है, इस चीज पर ध्यान दिया जाए तो बहुत अच्छा हो सकता है। मेरे ख्याल से इस चीज पे काम किया जा रहा है।
बिल्कुल बिल्कुल सूरज जी, और हम भी उसी दिशा में है कि हम इस चेंज को किस तरीके से सपोर्ट कर सके। और आज हमारा मिलने का यहाँ पर मकसद भी है कि मैं इस माध्यम से कुछ एक चेंजेस जो हमारी कंपनी सीबीएसई के साथ मिल करके हमारे आने वाले बोर्ड पेपर्स के क्वेश्चन पेपर्स में डेवलप करने का प्रयास कर रही है, वो चेंजेस से मैं आप सबको वाकिफ करा सकूं, ताकि हम भी अपने क्लास टेस्ट्स में, हमारे प्रैक्टिस क्वेश्चंस में, हमारे करिकुलम में इन तरीके के चेंज्ड क्वेश्चंस को इन्वॉल्व कर सके, ताकि जब बोर्ड एग्जाम में या कोई और टेस्ट में हमारे बच्चों को इस तरीके का एक ओपन एंडेड क्वेश्चन, इस तरीके का एक कॉम्पिटेंसी बेस्ड क्वेश्चन पूछा जाए, वो उसका सही से जवाब दे सके और वो उस क्वेश्चन को देख के एंजाइटी या डर का सामना नहीं करना पड़े। तो नाउ कमिंग बैक टू व्हाट वी वर डिस्कसिंग, considering this change, what is that we require to ensure that our students are prepared for our board exams? And these are some principles that we are now going to discuss, जो हम कोशिश करेंगे हमारे असेसमेंट पैटर्न में चेंज करने की, या इन्हें चेंज करने से हमें चेंजेस दिखने की उम्मीद है कि हमारे बच्चे will start responding better to questions. The first principle of having a good question is testing key concepts and core knowledge and not peripheral facts. I will repeat this in Hindi. I'll repeat this in English once again and explain this in Hindi. Testing key concepts and core knowledge and not peripheral facts. बहुत सारी ऐसी चीजें हैं जिनका जवाब हमें पहले याद रखना पड़ता था. For example, when was the revolt or who started the revolt of 1847? बट आजकल की जनरेशन को ये सब चीजें मेमोराइज करने की जरूरत नहीं, क्योंकि हमारे टाइम पे हम लाइब्रेरी में जाना पड़ता था, इंसाइक्लोपीडिया जाके रिसर्च करनी पड़ती थी ये करेक्ट आंसर लेके आने के लिए. इसलिए मेमोराइजेशन या चीजों को याद रखना एक बहुत ही इंपॉर्टेंट स्किल थी. करंटली चीजों को याद रखने की जरूरत नहीं है, बिकॉज हर किसी के हाथ में गूगल है, चैट जीपीटी अवेलेबल है. वो कोई भी फैक्ट अगर चेक करना चाहता है तो उसे उस चीज को याद करने की जरूरत नहीं. Fortunately, unfortunately, the way we still assess our students is based on how many facts they remember, not on the key concepts and the core knowledge that they have understood. I'll explain this with an example. हम जब facts test कर रहे हैं तो एक इस तरीके का क्वेश्चन हम बच्चों से पूछ सकते हैं, define a peninsula. अब I am sure एक इस तरीके का क्वेश्चन आप अपने इंग्लिश, साइंस, मैथमेटिक्स पेपर में भी पूछ ही रहे होंगे. व्हाट इज एन एंगल, व्हाट इज फोटोसिंथेसिस, व्हाट इज अ नाउन, गिव मी एन एग्जांपल ऑफ नाउन. व्हेन आई से आप, दिस इज not pertaining to the school, but you might have noticed that these kind of questions are available in the question papers even today. अब मैं आपसे एक ओपिनियन लेना चाहूंगा कि आपको लगता है कि ये एक क्वेश्चन ऐसा है जो बच्चों को पूछा जाना चाहिए, यस या नो? मुझे लगता है ये बहुत अच्छा क्वेश्चन है. इससे हमें ये पता चलेगा कि बच्चों को पेनिनसुला क्या है वो समझ में आ रहा है कि नहीं आ रहा है. बट मैं आप में से किसी भी एक का ओपिनियन लेना चाहूंगा वेरी क्विकली.
सर, ये प्रोसेस सचमुच बहुत अच्छा है. इवन क्या कहा जाता है कि अभी आजकल प्रोसेस ड्रामा इन एजुकेशन प्रोसेस भी चलने लगा है. लोग बच्चों को क्या कहता है कहानियों के थ्रू, स्टोरीज के थ्रू और जिस तरीके का कंटेंट वो देख रहे हैं ऑडियो विजुअल मेथड के थ्रू, वैसी चीजों के थ्रू, जैसे एक कहानी बना दिया, वहां पर इस तरह के नाम के लोग हैं, उस गांव में गए एंड देन उसके थ्रू सर्च किया गया कि नाउन के कितने टाइप्स ऑफ नाउन है, भाववाचक है, संज्ञावाचक है, इस तरीके की चीजें. एंड देन सर्वनाम में मैं और तुम और ये ऐसी चीजें भी की जा रही हैं.
राइट सर, आई एम सॉरी, आई विल स्टॉप यू हियर. आई थिंक मैं क्वेश्चन सही से नहीं पुट फॉरवर्ड कर पाया. माय क्वेश्चन वाज कि ये क्वेश्चन एक एग्जांपल आपके सामने स्क्रीन पे है व्हिच सेज डिफाइन अ पेनिनसुला. ये एक बच्चे को पूछा गया है. द क्वेश्चन इज दैट वेदर इज दिस अ गुड क्वेश्चन, if yes why, if not then why not. मैं आप में से किसी भी एक का ओपिनियन जानना चाहूंगा ऑन द सेम.
Sir, may I speak?
Please. Yes, ma'am.
Sir, this is a good question. Though being simple, it is a knowledge-based question, but we will get a good answer, or at least about 70% response from the whole class, because the question includes action verb of Bloom's taxonomy. So children will be able to know that they have to write the definition clearly. What and why questions normally confuse children. While when we use action verbs of the Bloom's taxonomy, the questions become precise and to the point.
Right. I believe almost all of us are aware of the Bloom's taxonomy. All the teachers in the call.
Yes.
Okay, perfect.
Yes, sir.
Now, anyone who thinks that this is not a very good question, it could have been better.
Yes, I think.
Yes, sir.
May I speak?
Yes,
Yes,
please.
Anand.
I think when this is more of a answer which can be learnt. So
Yes.
our point as teachers is that how much the child is able to understand and identify a peninsula. So given a choice, I will not give this type of a direct question. I will give him a question where the child will be able to identify a peninsula as to
Perfect.
whether this is a peninsula or it is not. Because if the child is able to answer that question, then we understand that yes, the child knows it, because the point of education is not how the child is able to write the answer in a systematic manner or learn it through rote, but whether the child has understood the concept.
Precisely.
That's
That's very well put forward, ma'am. Exactly. So, giving the answer to the lady, the ma'am who answered before this also, it even define a peninsula. This particular question totally aligns with the Bloom's taxonomy. However, what level are we trying to gauge when we are asking them define a peninsula? Remembering, understanding, not more than that. However, like Sahana ma'am correctly mentioned, the aim and the agenda is not to check whether the student has memorized it correctly. We are not trying to check his peripheral facts. Ye question, define a peninsula, a child can very easily type on Google and get the correct answer for the same. However, like ma'am mentioned, we now have to understand, again, as per Bloom's taxonomy, if the child is actually able to apply and analyze this knowledge of what he's learned in a real life context. So if we ask a different question, which is very similar to what we asked earlier, where we're saying identify a characteristic that is common to all the regions shaded on the map, the student will automatically be able to answer, okay, all these regions which are shaded, these have water surrounding them, and any land which has water surrounding it, it is exactly what a peninsula is. So this gives us an upper hand in not only understanding what the student has only rote learned, but whether or not he's understood it, whether he can articulate it in the correct words and put it up as a sentence, which makes us feel that he's understood the concept of what a peninsula is. This is exactly the change that we are trying to bring in. This is exactly the change with even CPSE is trying to bring in, where we are testing concepts and not core knowledge, and not facts. Is this example clear to everyone? How many of you don't relate with this? किन कोई ऐसा है जिनको लगता है कि नहीं ये नहीं होना चाहिए, ये गलत है, define a peninsula ही सही था? Yes, Suraj sir, do you have something to ask?
No, sir. Extremely agree with ma'am and you, whatever you said. And I think this is right way. This is the right way to teach or to learn these things.
Okay, perfect. We'll quickly see a few more examples of these questions. Again, a regular question. Gravitational pull of the moon on the earth is dash of the earth. किसको आंसर पता है?
1/6.
1/6.
1/6. Now, this is
1/6.
again something which we can Google. We can find out, this is a fact. वी आर नॉट टेस्टिंग द कॉन्सेप्ट. अब इसको अगर हमें इसी क्वेश्चन को डिफरेंट वे में फ्रेम करना था, वो कैसे कर पाएंगे? Very simply, if you're standing on the moon holding a pencil and you let it go, what will happen? Any
Float
science
away.
teacher?
Float away.
Exactly. It will float away. Why do we think it will float away? Because the moon has 1/6 gravity, because it will not hold, it won't fall down directly, but it will take more time to fall down, which is eventually it is floating. अब हम जो पहली चीज चेक करना चाह रहे थे इस क्वेश्चन में कि क्या बच्चों को ये समझ में आता है कि मून की ग्रेविटेशनल पुल अर्थ से कम है या अर्थ से ज्यादा है, क्या हमारा ये कॉन्सेप्ट यहां पे चेक हो गया? यस. क्या हमारा ये भी यहां पर चेक हो गया कि क्या बच्चा इसको एक्चुअली अप्लाई कर पा रहा है या नहीं कर पा रहा है?
Yes, sir.
अगर ये कर पा रहा है, then this makes it a good question. Then it makes a question which is checking the concept of the student and not the fact. So one key factor, one key mantra which I use when I draft my question papers is, when I put down a question, and for English teachers it is comparatively easy because the examples change. Problem kahan aati hai? Maths teachers ke sath, science teachers ke sath. Because there are already so many questions, it is easier to pick a question rather than framing one. Considering which, even for social studies teachers also, it's comparatively easier because because there are so many questions already available. What is the need to frame a new question? But next time when you put a question on a question paper, be it a class test, be it an assessment, just try and ask this to yourself कि क्या इसका आंसर बच्चे को गूगल पे मिल जाएगा डायरेक्टली सर्च करने से? अगर हाँ, so then probably it is not the best question to be put in the paper. If there is application that can be added to it, it will just add more value. Okay, in interest of time, I'll quickly move forward. Testing key concepts and core knowledge, not peripheral facts. We can also include real life questions, real world tasks, because this is what we are eventually trying to do: prepare our students for future, prepare our students for times to come. Second, yahan tak everyone is clear. We discussed one principle that we can try and adopt, which is testing concepts and not facts. Yahan tak sab clear hai? ठीक है. ये जिसके थम्स अप आ रहे हैं, मैंने उन सबका नाम ले लिया. मैं उन सबसे बाद में क्वेश्चन पूछूंगा. वंदना सिंह, गुंजन शर्मा, पल्लवी मैम, मैं इन सबसे क्वेश्चन पूछूंगा बाद में. ओके. Second principle that we will address is using questions that are unfamiliar, either the way they are framed or by their context. इसका मतलब, any English teacher in the group, please? Any English teacher in the group? Can I please see a thumbs up or hands raised? Something which tells me you're an English teacher. कोई नहीं है. Any English teacher, if you can please unmute yourself and explain what this means to all of us over here in a simpler language.
Yes, I'm Millie Agarwal. Good
Yes,
evening,
ma'am.
everybody. The question here is using questions that are unfamiliar, either in the way they are framed and or their context. So meaning that question is framed in a different manner, in an unfamiliar, either in the way they are framed or their context, meaning the way of asking question is different. Like, I can give an example also from the previous question that has been asked. What is a peninsula? If I have to ask this question, I would rather frame it this way: India is a peninsula. Why or how? Which will make it an image also for the child, an example which he will very well understand. How is India a peninsula?
Thank you so much, ma'am. That was a perfect example. And this is exactly what even we are trying to put forward. बाकी हम सब के लिए, just to reiterate जो मैम ने समझाया, हालांकि उन्होंने बहुत अच्छे से समझाया, हमें कोशिश ये करनी है कि हम जब एक क्वेश्चन पूछ रहे हैं,
उसे टेक्स्ट बुक से सीधा लेके या एक डायरेक्ट फॉर्म में ना पूछते हुए वो थोड़ा सा अनफेमिलियर बना दे. Again, I will take the example of the question that we used for our ice breaking activity. Just because वो बलून की स्ट्रेंथ 0 से नहीं चालू हो रही थी, हम में से बहुत को भी उसका सही आंसर देने में प्रॉब्लम है. This doesn't mean कि हम बच्चों के लिए मुश्किलें खड़ी करना चाह रहे हैं या we are wanting to set a difficult question for them. No. We are wanting to actually gauge कि क्या बच्चे को इसका कॉन्सेप्ट समझ में आया है. अगर आया है तो क्वेश्चन किसी भी तरीके से पूछो, he or she should be able to answer the same. If they are only able to answer familiar questions, which is similar to how they were asked in the textbook, similar to how they were discussed in the classroom, then probably जो ट्यूशन टीचर ने सिखाया है, जो क्लास टीचर ने सिखाया है, बच्चे ने वही याद किया है और वो एक्चुअल जो स्किल है, एक्चुअल जो कॉन्सेप्ट है, उसे 100% नहीं समझ पाए. We'll again take an example to explain this better. However, the example that ma'am gave was also very amazing. So, if we see on the left hand side, what is the perimeter of this rectangle? 4 centimeter, 2 centimeter, 4 centimeter, 2 centimeter. What should be the answer? ये क्वेश्चन आई थिंक हम सब ने हमारी टेक्स्ट बुक्स में देखा हुआ है, राइट या रॉन्ग, फ्रॉम द टाइम व्हेन आई वाज स्टडीइंग टू द टाइम टुडे व्हेन इवन स्टूडेंट्स आर स्टडीइंग. करेक्ट? Cut to the other question which is there on the right hand side. Which of these shapes has a perimeter? Shape 1, shape 2 और shape 3. आपके हिसाब से क्या आंसर होना चाहिए?
1 and 2.
1 and 2, sir.
Anyone who thinks कि shape 3 को भी include होना चाहिए? I think.
It's broken lines. I mean
Okay.
like the length of a line is basically its perimeter, but when we talk about perimeter, it's the whole covered area.
Right. Ma'am, I'm sorry, I couldn't get your name. The person who was answering, ma'am, your name is?
Prema?
Prema ma'am, आप maths पढ़ाते हैं?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, I mean like no, I'm zoology honors, but then
Okay.
I have this concept a little bit.
Perfect, perfect. Anyone else who thinks कि shape 3 should also be included and it also should have a perimeter? I think it should be included. It's a square. Squares have a perimeter.
Included, sir, may I?
Yes.
It should be included, but we cannot say the accurate perimeter because there is a gap. So accuracy नहीं आएगी, but we can measure tentative estimated perimeter we can.
Okay. Anyone else who thinks we can actually measure the actual perimeter of this question also? Of shape 3 also?
We can by using a string or something. Like in the books we have seen that with the help of a string we measure the perimeter. We teach the children how to measure a perimeter, so we can even use that concept to measure the perimeter of the third figure.
Okay, perfect.
Sir, perimeter is associated with a closed figure. The given figure is not a closed figure at all.
Right. Perfect. So correct. The correct answer is that only shapes 1 and 2. But what I was trying to come at is that until and unless we ask this type of a question, we will not be able to understand whether the child has actually understood what a perimeter is. So like in our case, when ma'am correctly first said that we can't measure because it's broken sides. Second, when the ma'am who recently spoke said that it has to be a closed figure, only then can we measure. These are characteristics of a shape of which we need to measure a perimeter. These are those lines in the math textbooks which nobody reads. But this is something that we want all our students to know. Considering which, questions when asked in a little changed format, in an unconditional, unconceptional format, they not only get the correct answer to the question, but we are also able to understand whether or not the student has understood all the concepts of perimeter. Everyone will be surprised when we did this exercise with CBSE. We tested over 80,000 students for this particular question. And you will be amazed that more than 70% students got this question wrong. This is an analysis we did in 2017. I'll be happy to share these reports with you as well. So there is nothing wrong in the way we are teaching. But what students are doing is they are just taking what as per them will come in the exam and is important. However, now because the way the exams are being formed are also different, this practice needs to start in the classroom, and that's why we are discussing these change in questions today. Again, this is another example. I won't go through too much details in this example because we're running out of time. So again, it's an unconditional question that we're asking the students, more real life example based, where we're asking that if we place a substance in the pot over here and there is wet sand outside, will it cool or no? And will this work if we replace the clay with a stainless steel pot also? So what we're doing is we are checking whether they understand their concepts of matter, whether they understand their concepts of evaporation, whether they understand all these concepts just through one question. So giving it context, when we say unfamiliar questions, I'll be sharing this presentation with all of you. अगर इसमें से आपको लगता है कि कुछ लिखना है या याद नहीं रहेगा, you can please write it down also. When we say that unfamiliar question का मतलब क्या है? मैं मैथ्स का टीचर उससे साइंस का क्वेश्चन पूछ लूं? Not necessarily. Unfamiliar is something which includes real life contexts, like we saw over here in this context. It is something which is not used in the textbook. It is more recent. It can be something about COVID-19. It can be about cryptocurrency. Now, because the elections are upcoming and there is a lot of buzz about these elections, it can be a question about these elections. It can be something which the students can relate to in their current scenario. It can be integrated. Two different concepts can be used to explain one particular or to frame one particular question. And the aim or the agenda is to check for conceptual understanding and misconceptions. So when we say unfamiliar question, we mean a question which is not asked in the textbook. It is more real life based. It is more contemporary development, current development, and how we can integrate different subjects also in our question so that we can ensure the child is getting a holistic learning experience. Again, this is again an example which was asked again on a NCERT survey which they did. You will find this question on the CBSE website as well if you go through their FRQ document. So over here, just to ask a question, the school has actually first explained to the students what is an infrared camera, because all the students might not know. And then they are asking this question that now the tip of the pen is totally white in color, as you can see. Why do you think that it should have been white? Or why do you think that the nib of the pen is more warmer than the entire pen itself? And there are 4 options given. So what are we trying to assess over here is the temperature, the concept of temperature, which how it usually is assessed is by showing a thermometer. We're just trying to give it another angle so that we can actually see if the students can apply it to something else apart from the thermometer as well. Now, how to make our life easy to draft these kind of questions? First, I will be sharing a table with all of you, which mentions all the key topics that are assessed in our classrooms, be it angles, be it word problems, be it numbers, be it nouns, be it photosynthesis. That table talks about how we can map it to real life application questions as well. If some of you might have gone through this, the CBSE had published this document a couple of months back. This is something we can use to, to use our skills forward. Second is, like when we were discussing, ma'am gave an excellent example that define a peninsula. India is a peninsula. What are the characteristics of India? Please state them forward. Amazing. Use more real life applications. It makes our job easier. If your question has a real life application, means 70% chances it is a conceptual question. Because if you're using a real life application question, you are actually getting the students to think to answer the question. What is more important is check for a concept in a specific context, what you want to test. all of you have been teachers for 2, 5, 10, 20 years now. आप सबको पता है कि ये एक ऐसी चीज है जिसमें बच्चे वीक है. To ensure and make this job even easier for us, the school has also taken some steps. I'm sure all of us will get to know in due course of time. The school also plans to conduct a diagnostic test जिससे आपको ये पता चल जाएगा बच्चों को क्या आता है और क्या क्या नहीं आता है. बट जब तक वो नहीं हो जाता है तब तक हमको तो पता ही है ना बच्चों को क्या आता है क्या नहीं आता है, वो कहाँ अटकेंगे. Please jot down that concept when you're writing down that I want to test this of a student. Please frame a question that tests that particular learning outcome that you're wanting to assess, which you know is in a context that the students will not be able to answer. So A, first diagnose, or you already know that this is something that the students don't know. Please keep that in mind when you're drafting a question for the student. Step 2, study. I'll be sharing a lot of sample papers with you. Go through them. See how these different questions are formed. Once you go through 10, 15, 20, 50 such questions, automatically we're all smart people. We get to understand as to how can we frame these questions. And third, once you fixed a context that you want to ask a question based on this context, try and collaborate it with a real life application so that your question becomes more application based. Students are thinking more, they're trying and applying more. We'll understand this with an example, what I explained so far, and then I'll take doubts if any. So here we are asking a simple, we've shown a map to the students, and the usual questions that the students get with related to the map is, map mein kya dikh raha hai? What is the closest to Mahim Bay? If we want to go from hospital to Ferguson Road, which is the path that we can take? This is usually the kind of questions that are asked on a map. Over here, what we're doing is we're changing our approach. We know that students don't focus on the aspects that the map wants to show. So like they don't know that there is a thin line to show the road. They don't know that there is a block shown to show buildings. They don't know that where there is a water body. They don't focus on these aspects. To ensure this, we're asking state 2 things about the map which does not provide you any information. Justify your answer. This is the question that we can ask the students. यहाँ पे हम क्या कर रहे हैं? We're just wanting, we know that this is something that students will not read with our due experience. We are trying to hit them right over there where we know that they are not prepared. As a result, what will happen is next time they will start preparing for the things which currently are gaps for them, which are currently misconceptions for them. Another question that can be asked is, a port, a metro line, a railway station are some of the features found in the present day Mumbai. Which of them are not likely to be represented in maps if they were created in the earlier 20th century? Again, what did we do? We took it as a real life application. Today in this map, you can see churches, railway stations, railway line, port. Early 20th century mein hota to kya kya hota? So automatically, students might come up with a thing that metro wasn't made then. Port may have not been present there, or port was not so well developed. It was probably lesser developed. So when you're framing a question, the best way to frame a question is first find out or know that where do you think that the students will make a mistake? What is the misconception? What is the doubt as per you that they have? We'll also in upcoming times discuss how to find these doubts. But currently, because we're focusing on assessment, let's stick to that. Once you have the doubt, let's address a question, like make a question, which most likely has a real life application in place, which is not directly from the textbook, which is not a conventional question, and which does not cater to facts which can be directly Googled and directly cut, copied, pasted from the textbook. If we are able to do these 3 things, then our question is automatically a good question. I'll take a break over here. Any doubts, any questions so far? Okay. Quickly moving forward, there are 2 important things that I have to cover. having questions covering the entire range of difficulty in a paper. Now, how many of you draft a paper keeping in mind कि at least 70% बच्चों को तो आंसर देना चाहिए? If yes, please give me a thumbs up. Right. Okay. Almost all of us, when we draft a paper, we keep in mind कि ये 4 बच्चे हैं जो बहुत स्मार्ट है, ये 4 बच्चे हैं जो बहुत वीक है, ये 20 बच्चे हैं मेरे क्लास के जो एवरेज लर्नर्स है, जो 70-80% मार्क्स ले आएंगे. हम जब पेपर ड्राफ्ट कर रहे हैं, हम इन 70-80% को माइंड में रख के कर रहे हैं. कुछ लोगों को पेपर इजी लगेगा, कुछ लोगों को पेपर डिफिकल्ट लग सकता है. हम एक एवरेज पेपर सेट करते हैं. How many of us do this? I think, like I could see the answer, most of us. We will now have to change this a little bit, not in our exam papers, but in our class tests. Please do this after discussion with your principal. But when you are having, or when you are posing questions to the students, when you are teaching them a concept, while we teach, a regular practice is that we will teach them, okay, this is what we were learning about today. This is what we taught today. Have all of you understood this? They'll say yes. And then you will pick up a few students and you will ask them that, okay, iska answer batao. This is how we usually teach, most of us. Now, when you're asking these questions in the classroom, make sure you're asking this question keeping in mind that only the top students of your class will be able to answer this question. Why is this important is, A, it becomes more engaging for even the smart learners in the classroom because they find more interest when a question is challenging. If it is directly being asked out of the textbook, which is something they've already learned and they've already memorized, probably something that the tuition teacher has already taught them, that is something that we're trying to change, A. B, even for the comparatively weaker learners who have not very well understood the concept, they'll get a more sense of clarity when that question was asked. So for example, if we take the perimeter example that we discussed, if this question was asked when we were teaching the concept of perimeter, by the answers that we got in our classroom, most of us would get to know that, okay, perimeter is something which can happen only of a closed figure. So what we are trying to do is, through questions, we are trying to erase the misconceptions of the students. For some of you, I've done this workshop many a times with a lot of schools. When I'm doing this physically, I can see the reaction change on all of our faces कि ये तो नहीं चलेगा, ऐसे तो कैसे होगा. But trust me, आप ये एक बार try करके देखिए. Ask these kind of questions in the classroom when you're teaching, and you will see what a phenomenal change it has in the way your students learn when you're teaching. We'll discuss this in detail later on. Now, moving forward, ensure that all your difficult questions are based on good sources of difficulty. So, when we say, or when I say that आपको बच्चों को थोड़े से difficult questions पूछने चाहिए, it doesn't mean that the question should be such that the students get confused and they cannot answer. No. It shouldn't be like the one which is there on the screens in front of you, that 2024 इसको कैसे answer करो. We are not wanting to confuse the students. We are wanting to ask them a difficult question so that they understand the concepts better. What are good sources of difficulty is when we are testing multiple learning outcomes through one question. We all draft our questions as per our learning outcomes, as per our chapter, the skills that we are teaching. Try and draft a couple of questions that are on more than one misconception, more than one learning outcome that we are drafting. So for example, if our learning outcome says that our students should be able to understand what a noun is, they should be able to distinguish between a common noun and a proper noun. The correct way to assess this in very simple terms would be that look around you in your class, or even more simpler way, just a sentence, rather than asking define a noun, it can be very simply put forward that Ram is a boy. Underline the proper noun, circle the common noun. Tell us why did you circle the common noun and why was this chosen over the other. Automatically, you will be able to understand. This is something which can be asked when you're teaching in the classroom, not in your assessment papers, but when you're teaching in the classroom, try and involve these kind of questions when you're assessing the students. You will automatically see as to how the students come up with amazing answers and how they're able to understand better when you're teaching. So similar to when we were doing the perimeter example, how like a teacher I kept pestering ki nahi ye bhi hona chahiye, kyun nahi hai? And the students were so determined in saying that ye nahi hoga because it's a open figure, perimeter can be only of a closed figure. Until our class gets to that point, please keep asking these questions. Moving forward, test concepts in an unfamiliar manner. This is something that we've used. Use age-appropriate but unseen contexts. I'm sure most of our classes have digital boards. We have a lot of material available on the internet. When you're asking these questions, make sure that we are asking their knowledge or we are testing their knowledge a little outside the textbook also, which is age-appropriate but also unseen. Check whether students are able to apply their concepts and asking basic questions from observations of real life. These are all concepts that we've discussed. Try and involve or try and revolve your around the same. Very quickly, to summarize this, I'll just take 5 more minutes to complete my session. I am sorry, I think the time was till 6 o'clock, but I'll just take 5 more minutes. I hope that is okay. Great. So just to quickly summarize this, we will now, when we're drafting a question, try and understand concepts and we will not just recall facts. We will test core learning, not facts. We will use unfamiliar context of questions. We will use real life context. We will use stimulus material as needed to test required skills, which is the resources that we're using, which is age appropriate material. We will use authentic data, maps, graphs, and any other information. The table that you see in front of you, this is not made by me, this is not made by the school, but this is something which CBSE has published on their website, where they claim that now when you're drafting a question, this is something that needs to be considered. This is exactly what we were discussing in the last 45 minutes, 1 hour. And these are some things that we will now try and manage in our questions. Very quickly, some other common practices that we need to keep in mind when we are drafting a question paper. Okay, question in front of you. Which question do you think is a better question and why? Anyone, very quickly.
Second one.
Yes, the second one.
Why? I like the first one more. Why is the second one better? Anyone? Any mathematics teacher? Any mathematics teacher? If they can help me
Because it
answer.
is open-ended. Yeah, it's open-ended. First one is open-ended.
First one is, but what is the problem with an open-ended
Second one is
question?
giving them the direction, but it will give more.
Okay, but what is the problem with an open-ended question?
Oh, there is no problem. I think it's good. हर बच्चे का different perspective होता है. I think multiple options हमारे पास आएंगे इसमें. और the second question है बिल्कुल एक direction है medicinal property के लिए आप पूछ रहे हैं. तो different आता है. Is depend on the teacher कि वो उसको judge क्या करना है. Especially medicinal property वाले plants का जानना है या open-ended. I think the first one है उसमें हर category के बच्चे आंसर दे सकते हैं. I think कोई specific नहीं. Range थोड़ा बड़ा है. First question.
The second one is a proper question. State one use of plants to humans in medicine. The first one, the language does not seem to be that it's a question. Acha, okay, because plants are used.
It's a fill in the blank, but yes, I got your point, ma'am. So very rightly put forward by all of us. The first question is open-ended, which may give us an answer which is not age appropriate. You will be surprised this question is taken from a class 8 NCERT science book. Plants are useful to humans because. Now, students can end up writing the answer to this because they help us with oxygen, which is not something you're expecting out of a class 8th child. What are you expecting of a class 8th child? To get out that answer, to get out your response, your students need to be more cognitively closed. Your expectation setting should be more clearer. I am sure this is something we already know and we already do. This is just quickly recalling that what we should keep in mind apart from the three things that we discussed today to ensure that our question paper is correct, up to the mark. Principal gives us the star on the question paper saying it is very good. This is one aspect. Second aspect is this again. Why do you think which question is better and why? Very quickly. If I can have a pre-primary teacher answer the same, please. Any pre-primary teacher on the call? Any pre-primary teacher? I was told pre-primary teachers would also be attending. Any pre-primary teacher on the call?
Yes, sir.
Yes, मैम कौन सा क्वेश्चन ज्यादा अच्छा लग रहा है आपको, राइट वाला या लेफ्ट वाला, और क्यों?
Sir, I think for pre-primary, second one is easy, and the first one they'll have to think a lot about that.
No, ma'am, this is not related to pre-primary. This is just a generic question. This is, I think, for a class 6 or a class 7. This
So
is
I
just to
believe-
take your opinion.
Sir, first question is better.
First question is better. Identify a process that will not take place in plants if light is not present. This question is better?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Anyone who thinks that the second question is better? Anyone from us who thinks that the second question is better?
Sir, in the second one, if the definition a child knows, he would be answering it better. Because it is just a definition there, only they have to tell the name. What is going to be there?
Okay, okay. So basically over here, my opinion is a little different than all the teachers. Maybe right, it may be wrong. I am leaving it for all of you
So
to
before
decide.
you speak, can I
Yes.
share my?
Yes, please.
Sir,
Prajakta,
I
ma'am.
feel both the questions are okay for the children because it's just the words difference that we have made. When in presence of light, what is the answer that the children would understand and write? And in the absence of light, what would the process be? So both the questions would be fine for the children if they know the concept very well.
Right. Right, perfect. So I'll give everyone a little context. Sorry, थोड़े heavy words हो जाएंगे तो अगर इसमें. In 2009, PISA was first conducted for India. What is PISA? It's an international test which is conducted to check that which country knows the most, which country students know the most, where a lot of countries participate. When India first participated in PISA in 2009, we ranked 72, I believe, out of 74 countries participating. Program for International Standard Assessment is the full form of PISA. I'll share details if anyone wants to go through it. Now, after that, India said that we will not participate in PISA. It doesn't work for us. But a lot of other companies did a lot of research in the countries who topped the list, naming Singapore, Finland, Netherlands. These are countries which are continuously from the last 15 years topping the list. So when we checked their question papers, that what is that they do differently, they avoid using negative terms while drafting a question paper. This is something which now even India has incorporated, taking reference from Common Core, which was used by UK and then by England, which is something which we in simpler terms called as the IGCSE curriculum. Taking reference for that, even now we say, it is mentioned in the NCF guidelines as well, if anyone goes through it in detail, avoid using negatives in the question when you're framing a question. This leads to confusion for the students. So instead of asking, identify a process that will not take place in plants if there is no light present, simply ask it as identify a process that will happen if there is light. So try and avoid using negatives when you're asking this question.
Excuse me.
Yes.
Sir, the same thing I have written in the chat.
Ma'am, totally. Like I said, ma'am, too many chats, I'm not able to go through the same. But if you said that exactly correct, we will try and avoid using negatives in framing a question because two reasons. A, it is proven that it confuses the student when they're answering. Second, it is something that now going forward, even the government is asking us against, is asking us to stop. So this is something we can keep in mind. Very quickly, moving to the last aspect that I was wanting to cover. When you are drafting your question, please make sure that it's clear, concise, and age appropriate. Many a times what happens is because we are teachers and we are using a certain language to communicate, even when we are drafting a question paper, that kind of a question comes down. So instead of saying Neeta is relocating to a city in Maharashtra, Nikita is shifting to a city in Maharashtra is a better approach. Just by adding difficult words in a question doesn't make your question a difficult question. You want to make your question a difficult question, make it more conceptual based, have more real life applications, make it more unseen. Adding difficult words will not make it a difficult question. Also, again, familiarization, please use context which your students will be able to adhere to more, understand more. So I believe all of us are based out of Maharashtra. So instead of taking an example of makke di roti in the classroom, an idli or a rice or a bhakri, it's more easier for students to understand. So for example, rather than saying idlis are a popular breakfast, saying rice is cooked in many households, what is the technique to cook rice? You can explain that. Because just think that when you're asking that question to 40 students, out of which probably 10 have come from outside Maharashtra, there is a huge chance that usme se 10 idli nahi khate. So they might know the answer, but just because it is out of context, they are not able to answer to the same. So we'll just keep this in mind when we are drafting this up ahead. So for now, we'll be ending our session here today. I'll be leaving you with the idea that what are the 3 key principles that we discussed today to make a question better than it already is, which is not including facts, making it unfamiliar, and having it to be more real life. In the next session, when we meet, probably in this month or the next month, I'll be discussing that with Aarti ma'am after this. But we will try and understand that how can we make a rubrics for answering this question. So question is only the first part. How to assess the question and what are the key points that we need to keep in mind when we're creating the answering rubrics for the same is something that we will discuss in times to come in the upcoming session. Because earlier it was easy. There was only one answer. Now with open-ended questions, real-life application questions, the answers may also vary. So what can be marked as the correct answer? What should be given for full marks? Kisme adha mark kaatna hai? How to draft that kind of a rubric is something we will discuss in the upcoming session. I will just take a pause over here and I will just open the floor. Anybody, any doubts, any confusions? We've today just tried and covered the 3 basic principles of creating quality assessments. कोई परेशानी समझने में, कोई इससे relate नहीं कर रहा है, किसी को लग रहा है हमसे नहीं हो पाएगा, any issues?
Sir, can I ask a question?
Please, ma'am.
So, like when we were discussing about the term, like not to use negative terms. So we do use it, like we do follow this idea while having moral science or moral values. Like instead of saying that do not talk over each other, we can simply say that let others have a chance. So that's moral values. But when it comes to maths or science, I believe the first question, I think that would help student to think more. So that is the reason why I said the first question. So I just wanted to get clear about it.
Ma'am, totally. So like I said, ma'am, nobody knows your set of 40 more than you do. These are all principles, approved principles, researches, theories, which apply on the majority. They may or may not apply on your set of 40. So, like I said, all these practices, you start drafting these kind of questions, you start asking them to your students, you start seeing their responses. If you see that there is a positive response, our learning is better, then you can probably continue with the same. If you think that no, this is not working, it's working in the negative, then please discuss this with your principal, discuss this with your coordinator, your senior teachers, discuss this with me, discuss this with whoever you think is relevant, just to see that if this is what the national standard is, if this is what India and 29 other countries across the globe are following, why is this not working in my classroom? So nothing is wrong. If you think that by using a different pattern or a different way, by using the negative way of questioning per se, you can get to a better result, please go ahead and follow the same. However, if you think that by making this change, experiment. If you think that it works out in your classroom, great. If you think it doesn't work out, we'll sit again and we'll try and understand why is it not working.
All right, sir. Thank you, sir.
Okay. So, ma'am, sorry, I'll just cut you for a second. अब मेरे पास आप सबके लिए दो homework है for all the teachers over here. One is I will be sharing a link with you, which will have one competency-based question appearing on it each and every day. It is currently applicable only for classes 3 to 10. So the other classes will not be able to benefit from it as of today. Moving forward, we're working to resources which will be able to help the other classes as well. As per this link, you can please select the class that you're taking up. So on Monday, there will be a maths question. On Tuesday, there will be an English question. On Wednesday, there'll be a science question, so on and so forth. I'll ensure that this message along with the link is passed on to you on your WhatsApp groups. Please, every day, make it a practice for the next 2, 3, 5 days. Just read this question. The best way of learning to draft different questions is to going through these questions. So please start reading through these different type of questions. A. B, second homework is, I'll be sharing a link with all of you, which I am sharing right now. This will take you less than 5 minutes to answer. It just basically asks you your name, the classes that you are teaching. If you are teaching 3, 4, 5, please select 3, 4, 5. It selects the subject that you are teaching. Please select only one. If you are teaching any two, please select one, whichever you like the most. It then asks you to just very simply, out of a topic of your choice, whichever you're already preparing for your current PT1, which is there in your unit 1, which is the first chapter in your textbook, उसमें से कोई भी एक question आप frame करके मुझे बताएंगे. Make sure that question that you're framing includes the 3 things that we discussed today. It does not include facts. It includes real life application. It's a little different from what we see in textbooks. क्या सबको ये clear है? If anybody has a question, you can ask me now. इसके बाद मैं आपको आंसर के टाइम पे मिलूंगा सीधा. The link has been shared on the chat box. I'll be pinning up the link also, ताकि आपको ऊपर ही ऊपर दिख जाए. I'll request to whosoever can.
It is also being shared in the subject groups, teachers.
Perfect. So today, tomorrow, whenever we get the time, you will please fill this up. We're setting a deadline for filling this by Tuesday. So Monday is working for all of us?
Yes.
Yes, it is working.
So आप कल या Monday, whenever you get time, you will please open your textbooks. You will just go through whatever. अगर आपको याद है तो all the more better. You will just draft one simple question and you will submit this by Tuesday. Now, अब तक तो सब देखो अच्छी चीजें थी. We will also be checking as to which teachers did not answer this. So if you're not being able to answer, please reach out to the respective person and give them that why you couldn't answer. It's okay. It's an activity for learning. There is no penalty, there is no punishment. But if you're not able to participate, just inform the concern that you will not be able to participate. For the remaining 130, 140 that are there in the call, please try and answer. It's a simple 5-minute exercise. Basis how we receive our responses, it will be easier for us to draft our upcoming session with the teachers. Right. That's all from my end today. If anyone has any doubts, any confusions, you can please reach out to me. If not, I think we're free to leave the call.
Thank you so much, Himanshu sir, for such an informative session, and we are looking forward for your upcoming session as well for the next month. Thank you, teachers, for joining in. I hope if you have any questions, I'll give you quickly 2 minutes to ask him. If not, I'm sharing a feedback form in the chat box. Please fill in and you can leave the session. Thank you so much for joining in. Thank you, Himanshu sir.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, everyone.
I guess I'm having some network issue, and share the feedback form on your WhatsApp groups. You can fill in there. Thank you so much for joining in.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Himanshu. It was very informative.
Thank you, Arti. It's your pleasure. I'll connect with you once later after the call in the next 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Okay, I believe no questions, so even I can